I've been driving for nearly 13 years now, mostly long haul out of Texas, sometimes into New Mexico or Louisiana, but usually right up and down the I-35 corridor. I drive solo. Always have. I like the silence, the rhythm, and the feeling that I'm one of the few people who still sees America from the ground up. But a few years ago, something happened to me that I've never talked about, something I still don't understand. It was mid-July, scorching hot. I was pulling refrigerated freight out of the H-E-B distribution center in San Antonio, headed west toward Uvalde. I had about 10 hours of legal drive time left and figured I'd stop off at a Love's off Highway 90, top off the tank, and get a cold drink before pushing the last leg of the trip. That's where I first saw him. He was just sitting outside on one of those molded plastic chairs, half in the shade. Wore clean jeans, black boots, a faded snapback with the mesh in the back. White beard, maybe late 60s or 70s, and he held a steaming styrofoam cup like it weighed nothing. No rig, no car nearby, and no bag either. Just him. As I walked past, he looked up at me and said, real calm, "You ever wonder why your trailer always runs cold, even when the freight don't need it?" It stopped me in my tracks. That trailer had been running warm the week before. Busted relay, took forever to get it fixed. I hadn't told anybody, not even dispatch. I blinked and asked, "You a driver?" He smiled just slightly. Was. Long time ago. Call me Moses. I didn't know what to say, so I just kind of nodded and went inside. But something about the way he said it stuck in my gut. When I came back out, he was gone. Chair still there. Cup, too, half full, no lid. Still hot. The next night, I saw him again. Different stop, different town. I was parked at a mom and pop diner off 57, near La Pryor, and there he was, sitting out by the ice machine, sipping coffee, clean boots and all. "You didn't listen," he said, before I even opened my mouth. I asked what he meant. "That load you're pulling, it ain't what you think. And the man who sent you out doesn't know what he's dealing with. But you're the one gonna pay." It sent a chill through me, and I couldn't explain why. I told myself he was just a lonely old guy playing a game. Maybe crazy, maybe not. But when I got back to my truck and pulled the bills again, I noticed something I hadn't before. Under description of goods, someone had scribbled in ink, "Meat product samples." Except the manifest from H-E-B listed it as empty. No weight was recorded on the dock scale. I walked back to the trailer and unsealed it myself. Ice crystals clung to the walls. Freezing cold air spilled out. But the inside was completely empty. Clean. No pallets. No tie-downs. That didn't make sense. I'd felt the weight pulling me down for miles. Even my fuel economy showed the difference. But the trailer was bare. I called dispatch. They brushed it off, said it must have been a mistake. Maybe the load was pulled last minute and the system hadn't updated. I asked if we still get paid on empties like that. The guy on the other end just went quiet for a beat before saying, "Don't worry about it. Just complete the drop." Next day, I stopped at a truck wash near Eagle Pass to get the trailer cleaned. And guess who was standing by the vending machines? Moses. He didn't say a word this time, just nodded at me and walked off toward the trees behind the building. Not a road, not a path, just scrub brush and mesquite. That was the last time I saw him in person. But after that, things started to get weird. I began noticing a silver SUV parked in strange places. Once in my motel lot in Del Rio, again outside of Valero when I was fueling up near Kitula. Never close. Just far enough for plausible deniability. Tinted windows, plates partially covered with mud. When I tried to walk toward it, it would drive off slow and disappear down back roads. Then came the call. Unknown number. 2:41 a.m. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. The voice on the other end was male. Calm. He said, "Driver 4472, your logs from July 16th to 19th are being adjusted to reflect a 10-hour rest break in Laredo. This correction is standard and requires no action. Do not contact dispatch about this. Thank you." Click. Only problem? I was never in Laredo. Not even close. I checked my logs. They'd been changed. The GPS was scrubbed clean. My fuel receipt from Uvalde still showed the right location, but the hours didn't match anymore. According to the system, I'd taken a 10-hour break I never took, in a place I never went. I went into the terminal office that week and asked to speak with safety. The guy behind the desk looked me over and asked what it was about. When I told him, he gave a tight smile and said, "Just a paperwork issue. Happens sometimes. You're good to go." No one ever looked me in the eye. After that, I stopped getting reefer assignments. Switched to dry van, requested regional instead of OTR. Changed companies within 6 months. But before I left, I found something that stuck with me ever since. An older driver, Tom, who'd been around longer than me, pulled me aside at a rest stop and said, "You had a load out of San Antonio last year, didn't you? Reefer, white trailer, lot 3. I nodded. "Yeah, how'd you know?" He looked down at the ground for a moment and said, "You ever hear about the driver who went missing in 2014? Guy named Eldon Price?" I hadn't. He took a load from that same lot. Never made it to drop. Company said it was stolen. 2 weeks later, they found the truck burned out near a ranch. Empty trailer. No sign of Eldon. Just gone. He paused and added, his CB handle was Moses. I knew him. Used to say things real strange, like he saw stuff before it happened. My stomach sank. The man I'd been seeing wasn't just some old truck stop prophet. He was a guy who disappeared almost a decade ago. Or someone using his name. I don't know what was in that trailer. I don't know why they scrubbed my logs, or who that SUV belonged to. But ever since then, I keep my haul short, my nose clean, and my eyes open. And every time I stop at a truck stop and see an old man sitting alone, sipping coffee, I check his boots. I was running a hot load of agricultural equipment from Midland down to Presidio, Texas, a border town most folks haven't even heard of unless they've driven freight near the Big Bend. It's about as remote as you can get in Texas. 2-lane highways, no real rest areas, and cell reception that comes and goes like a drunk uncle at Thanksgiving. It was supposed to be a quick overnight. 17,000 pounds of gear headed to a farm co-op near the Rio Grande. Nothing unusual about the route. Highway 67 south, then a long empty stretch before dropping into Presidio. I'd made runs near there before, but this was the first time I'd be heading into town after dark. Dispatch didn't blink when I told them I'd be rolling late. Just drop it behind the gate, they said. Someone will be there in the morning. I left Fort Stockton around 6 p.m. That's where the last reliable truck stop is before it gets real quiet. Gassed up, grabbed some jerky, and hit the road. By the time I reached the halfway mark, the sun had dropped behind the mesas, and the sky had that deep purple bleed you only see in West Texas. That stretch between Marfa and Presidio is straight up nothing. No lights, no towns, just sagebrush, rocks, and wire fences. Sometimes, I swear, even the stars feel too far away. About 20 minutes outside Presidio, I saw the flashers. An unmarked white pickup truck. Looked like a Ford F-150 parked just off the shoulder with alternating blue and amber lights mounted to the dash. Not the usual red and blues. The truck pulled out behind me, sped up, and flashed the high beams twice. I slowed down, moved toward the shoulder. I figured it had to be some kind of roadside check. Maybe agriculture, maybe border related. I wasn't carrying anything illegal, just farming equipment, all documented. Once I came to a stop, the white pickup pulled in behind me. Just kicked up in the beams of my brake lights. A man got out. He was wearing jeans, work boots, and a high-vis vest over a dark green shirt. No patch, no badge. Just a laminated ID badge hanging from a retractable clip. It looked homemade, like one of those cards you make for a trade show booth. He had a clipboard, too. He walked up to the passenger side and tapped the window. "Department of Transportation checkpoint, sir," he said. "Got a quick inspection point up ahead. We're just pulling commercial vehicles for documentation and equipment checks. Mind if I step up into the cab for a minute?" I said, "I haven't seen a DOT stop this far west." "We're running a mobile unit tonight," he said, still smiling. "Nothing major. Quick formality." There was something about the way he looked at me, like he wasn't actually seeing me, just scanning my face. His eyes didn't track naturally. His badge never came close enough to read. I said, "If it's all right with you, I'll call dispatch and confirm the checkpoint." His face didn't change, but he hesitated, just for a second. "That won't be necessary. They're aware. I've already spoken to your carrier's regional supervisor," which made no sense. My carrier is a mid-size outfit based out of Odessa. We don't even have a regional supervisor. I picked up the mic on my CB. "Breaker 19, anyone running south of Marfa? Anyone see DOT checkpoints on 67 near Presidio tonight?" Dead air. No crackle. No fuzz. No return. I checked my phone, 0 bars. The man knocked on the window again. "Firmer. I need to see your logbook, registration, and trailer manifest," he said. Now, I don't know what came over me, but I slowly clicked the gear into drive and eased back onto the road. He didn't try to stop me. Just stood there. No yelling. No threats. Just watched me roll away, clipboard still in hand, his silhouette fading into the dust kicked up behind me. About 5 miles later, I saw real lights, an actual patrol vehicle parked at an intersection with proper markings and a uniformed officer standing beside it. I pulled over and told him what just happened. He asked me to describe the man and the truck. When I did, his face changed. "That doesn't sound like anyone working with us," he said. "We don't have DOT units out tonight. We haven't had mobile stops on this highway in over a year." I offered to turn around. "File a report." He shook his head. "You're not the first driver to say something like this," he said quietly. "We've had 2 similar reports in the last few months. Different nights. Same area. White pickup, fake badge. One guy said he let the man into the cab. Lost his laptop and logbook. Never got them back. I asked if they caught the guy. Working on it, he said. But around here, there's a lot of space to disappear. I made my delivery and deadhead back in the daylight. Nothing out of the ordinary on the return. No pickups, no fake checkpoints, just sun and asphalt and that endless West Texas silence. Weeks went by. Then one morning I was in our Odessa yard, and one of the younger guys, Adam, came in looking pale. Said he'd been pulled over south of Marfa around 9 p.m. by a white truck with dash lights. DOT guy looked weird, he said. Didn't say much. Took photos of my cab. I asked for ID, and he got real quiet. I asked if he let him in. No, he said. But he said my route had been flagged, that I should expect follow-up. That night, Adam's truck was broken into in the company lot. Only thing taken? His ELD unit and printed manifests. Nothing else touched. We reported it, of course. Nothing ever came of it. And now every time I take a solo night run through the desert, I think about that man, how calm he was, how rehearsed, like he'd done it before, like he had a purpose that didn't involve a single mile of highway law. I never saw him again. But sometimes, on a stretch of road between Marfa and Presidio, my CB goes dead. And every time it does, I keep my foot on the gas. I've done private hauls before. It's not unusual in the freight world. Sometimes you get a call from a third-party broker or a small company that wants a one-off run, usually cash on delivery or a wire after drop. It's not sketchy by default, just off the books, discreet. But this one still keeps me up at night. It came through a dispatcher I'd worked with during my flatbed days, a guy named Dylan. He messaged me one morning asking if I wanted an easy haul down to South Padre Island. Said it was non-commercial, just an oversized crate going to a private residence. Only catch was the drop had to happen after dusk, and the property was tight for turnaround. I need to back the trailer in from the road and leave it staged inside the gate. I pressed him for details. He said the client didn't want daylight delivery due to HOA complaints about noise, but the job paid double market rate. No bill of lading, just a handwritten drop sheet with coordinates and a passcode for the gate. It sounded weird, yeah, but I'd done worse. I picked the load up from a warehouse outside Corpus. The crate was big, roughly the size of a small SUV, strapped down on a lowboy and shrink-wrapped so tight you couldn't see anything but plastic and blocking wood. No markings, no shipping info, not even a this side up. The warehouse crew loaded it without saying much. One guy gave me the gate code scribbled on a sticky note and said, "Don't miss the window." That was it. I started the drive around 6 p.m. It was early summer, still plenty of light. South Padre's only about 3 hours from Corpus, so I figured I'd time it to roll in around 9:30, just after sunset. Once you cross the Queen Isabella Causeway onto the island, everything changes. Tourists, golf carts, lights from beachside condos. But my drop address was way down the strip, past the resorts, near the protected dunes. By the time I got there, everything was pitch black except the faint glow of the moon on the surf and a few dim porch lights along the beach houses. The property was surrounded by a 6-foot wooden privacy fence, tall palms on either side. The gate was closed, no signage, no house number. Just sand-packed pavement and the coordinates I'd been given, which matched dead on. I got out, punched in the code. The gate opened slowly, completely silent, like it had just been greased. Inside was a winding, one-lane concrete drive lit by 4 small ground-level lights. No motion detectors, no welcome lights, no house visible from the street. It felt like I was backing into someone's private compound. I got the rig positioned and opened the trailer to start the offload process. There were no instructions, no receiver, just the crate and my responsibility to stage it anywhere inside the gate. So I did. Dropped it right in the gravel turnaround at the end of the drive. Strapped it with hazard flags just to be safe. I took photos as proof, uploaded them to the tracking app Dylan provided, and got back in the cab to finish the log. I was about to pull out when a dark figure stepped out from behind a nearby palm tree. No flashlight, no phone, just stood there, watching me through the windshield. I froze. He approached the driver's side, slowly, deliberately. Mid-50s, maybe, wearing slacks and a tucked-in polo. No shoes. His expression was off. Not angry, not grateful, just still. He leaned in and knocked on the window once. "You made good time," he said. "Thank you." I nodded. "You the receiver?" He didn't answer, just looked past me into the empty trailer. Then he said, "Did you talk to anyone about this delivery?" "No," I lied. He nodded once. "Good." Then he turned and walked back into the darkness beyond the edge of the drive. No goodnight, no clipboard, just vanished into the black between the palms. I pulled out and got off that island as fast as the rig would allow. The next few days were uneventful. I sent Dylan my proof of delivery photos, and he confirmed payment. No issues. Clean. But 3 days later, I came home from a short regional run and noticed something odd in my house. My trip logs, the printed ones I keep in a binder on my desk, were gone. Nothing else was touched. Not my laptop. Not the $400 cash in the drawer. Just the binder. I live alone. No roommates. No pets. No family nearby. Nothing was broken. Doors were locked. Windows secured. The alarm didn't trip. It was like someone knew exactly what they were looking for. I called Dylan. He didn't answer. I texted him and asked who the client was. Said I needed a copy of the invoice for tax records. A few hours later, he finally replied. "That contract's closed. Don't dig. It was legal freight. You got paid. Move on." I didn't push it, but I did some digging anyway. Tried to reverse search the coordinates. The parcel was listed as unregistered private tract, not unusual for beach property, but no utilities were tied to it. No permits filed. No structure officially exists there. I checked again 6 months later. Satellite view showed nothing where I dropped that crate. No drive. No gate. Just scrub, sand, and washout tire marks. I haven't heard from Dylan since. His number changed. No trace of the broker name he used either. Now, whenever I get a private haul request, I ask one question first. Where's the drop? If they say South Padre or worse, they give me coordinates instead of an address, I say no. Because someone watched me that night, and they didn't want the crate delivered. They wanted to see if I'd talk about it. I've been running loads through North Texas for years. Mostly dry van, mostly quiet, long stretches between towns, a handful of rest areas, and the occasional pop-up inspection station. I know the routine. Slow down, weigh in, flash your logs, maybe get waved through or pulled for a random. It's part of the job, but this one night still messes with my head. It was around 10:30 p.m. when I hit the northbound stretch of US 287, somewhere past Wichita Falls. Clear skies, light traffic, and I was hauling a half-load of plastics bound for Oklahoma City. I'd planned to push through to Ardmore before calling it for the night, but about 10 miles outside of town, I saw the flashing arrow temporary inspection ahead, 2 lanes closed, follow cones. Nothing unusual. There was a portable weigh station off to the right, lit up under those harsh floodlights. Portable scales, a prefab trailer with tinted windows, and a couple of pickups parked beside it. I slowed down and pulled onto the pad. The guy who came out was in uniform, DOT patch, vest, clipboard. He looked maybe early 40s, professional, not overly friendly but not aggressive either. He waved me into a spot along the side and asked for my license, registration, logbook, and trailer manifest. I handed everything over. He nodded as he flipped through the pages. "Routine stop," he said, "but we're flagging your unit for a 4-hour administrative hold." I blinked. 4 hours. He didn't look up. "Your carrier's on a list for a random route verification. You can idle, walk around, whatever you need, but stay on the property. We'll clear you shortly." It didn't make sense. I'd never heard of a 4-hour hold, not without cause. I asked if I could speak to someone inside. He pointed to the prefab trailer and said, "They'll let you know when they're ready." And that was it. I parked on the gravel shoulder just past the way pad and waited. At first, I didn't think much of it. I cleaned out my cab, logged my hours, made a couple notes about the drop. No cell service, but that's not uncommon out there. I figured I'd just nap and check back in a bit. But 2 hours in, something started to feel off. There were no other trucks. Not a single one the entire time. No one came out of the prefab. No doors opened. No lights changed. The window blinds didn't move. The floodlights were still on, casting those ugly shadows on the cracked pavement. But the place felt abandoned. I got out and walked toward the trailer. No movement inside. The pickup trucks parked outside hadn't shifted. No heat haze from the hoods. I looked closer. One of the plates was partially covered with a plastic bag. The other had no tags at all. That's when I noticed something worse. My documents, the ones I handed the officer, were sitting on the ground just outside the prefab trailer, blown partially under the metal steps like they'd been tossed. I bent down to grab them. The logbook was torn clean down the middle. My license was missing. The trailer manifest had a footprint across it, like someone had stepped on it intentionally. I stood there for a long moment, listening. No wind, no insects, no sound at all. I tried the trailer door. Locked. No handle on the outside. The windows were tinted, but not dark. I could see inside faintly. Empty. Not a chair, not a desk. Just a blank box. I backed away slowly and returned to my truck. Tried the CB dead air. Not even static. I scanned every channel. Nothing. I turned the engine on, flicked on the high beams, and swept them across the lot. Something else hit me. There were no tire tracks leading into the inspection area except my own. No gravel disturbed, no fresh mud. The cones weren't anchored. The sign by the road that had said, "Inspection ahead," it wasn't official. Just a printed banner zip-tied to 2 fence poles. I threw it into gear and started moving. As I rolled past the exit, I noticed a small object by the base of one of the floodlights. I stopped long enough to shine my brights on it. It was a wallet. I got out a check, cautiously. Inside were a few faded receipts, an old-style CDL, and a folded-up employee badge from a carrier I recognized. Artie Transload, a company that shut down 2 years ago after one of their drivers went missing during a run through West Texas. His name was Russell Greer. I remembered it because the story hit trucker forums hard. No foul play proven, just a rig found idling at a rest stop and a driver gone with the wind. That was the name on the license. I left the wallet where I found it, got back in the truck, and didn't stop until I hit the outskirts of Gainesville. I tried calling Dylan, my old dispatcher. No answer. I called the DOT's regional office the next day and asked if any mobile inspections had been scheduled near Wichita Falls that night. The woman on the phone checked. There were no active checkpoints in that area, she said. None planned and none recorded. I asked if they ever used unmarked prefab trailers for administrative holds. She paused, then said, "No, sir. Not for commercial enforcement. If anyone asks you to pull over in an unmarked area like that again, we recommend calling law enforcement immediately." I never got my license back. Had to go through the DMV and report it lost. A month later, I got a fraud alert from my bank. Someone had tried to open a fuel card using my carrier's DOT number and my driver ID. They failed, but the attempt came from an IP address based out of El Reno, Oklahoma, right along my original route. I don't know who ran that fake inspection. I don't know why they needed 4 hours. But whatever they were doing, it wasn't just about me. And I guarantee I wasn't the first driver they put on hold. A few months ago, I was assigned to a weird retrieval job just off I-10 in West Texas, somewhere between Junction and Sonora. The kind of job that doesn't go through the normal load board. It came from a contact of a contact, routed through a third-party broker with no carrier name listed, just a number and an address, pickup location, storage lot, mile marker 118. I called the number and got a guy who identified himself as Ramon. He sounded professional enough, said it was a recovery run. Someone had paid to store a trailer there months ago, never came back for it. I was just supposed to go grab it and deliver it to a yard outside Houston. Easy money, he said. Flat rate, cash drop. No questions. I've done storage pulls before. They're usually boring. But the location raised flags. There was nothing near mile marker 118 except low brush, caliche roads, and busted fences. But it paid well, and I was already westbound with an empty trailer. So I said yes. I got there around 5 p.m. It was golden hour, that soft, warm light washing over everything. The kind of glow that makes even the ugliest places look peaceful. But this lot, it wasn't peaceful. It was a large, unmarked gravel clearing tucked behind a rusted pipe gate. The access road was barely wider than my rig, cut into the brush with faded ruts and potholes full of sun-baked water. No signage. Just a keypad box on the left post, wired to nothing. I keyed in the code Ramon gave me, 7752. The gate clicked open. No noise, no resistance. The storage lot was a mess. No pavement. Just a big dirt bowl filled with abandoned rigs, trailers on flats, busted reefers, stripped-down chassis with no plates. Like a forgotten boneyard for equipment that didn't matter anymore. No people. No office. No cameras that I could see. My assigned trailer was parked near the far edge of the lot, number 41873. I spotted it quick, matched the photo Ramon had sent. It looked out of place. Too clean. Newer than the others. Still had stickers on the side, DOT number visible. The seal was intact, padlock snapped on. But something about the way it sat, angled away from the rest, perfectly square to the lot, gave me a weird feeling. Like it had been placed there recently, not like the others rotting in place. I walked around it, checked the tires, inspected the kingpin. Everything looked good. That's when I noticed the second truck. A white Cascadia, parked parallel to the exit. Off to the side, half shaded behind a line of overgrown brush. It hadn't been there when I came in. I was sure of that. I would have seen it. No running lights. No movement. I stood there staring at it for a minute, trying to decide whether to wave, approach, or just hook and go. Before I could decide, the driver's door opened. A man climbed out slowly. He wore a dark hoodie, jeans, work boots. No safety vest. No gloves. He didn't look at me. Just walked around the front of his truck and stood in the middle of the lot, directly in line with the exit. I waved. "You good, man?" No answer. He just pulled something from his back pocket, a phone, and held it up, screen facing me. A countdown was ticking on it. 00:02:17. 00:02:16. I took a step back. What the hell is that? Still nothing. I turned and walked quickly back to my cab, watching him the whole way. He didn't move. Just stood there holding the timer. It was below 1 minute now. I fired up the engine, threw the rig into reverse, and backed toward the trailer. The man didn't chase. Didn't speak. Just turned and walked back to his cab. I didn't hook the trailer. I pulled out of that lot, hard and fast, tearing through the caliche and clipping one of the gate posts on the way out. No gate tried to close. No one followed me, at least, not right away. I drove 20 miles east before stopping at a Chevron station. I parked in the back lot and called Ramon. He didn't answer. I texted him. Job site wasn't secure. Someone was there. I'm out. No reply. The next morning, I checked the lot again on satellite maps, Google, Apple, you name it. There was no trace of it. No lot. No dirt road. No trailers. Just brushland and what looked like old cattle fencing. But it had been there. I had tire tracks, dash cam footage, and a clip of the guy with the timer. I watched it over and over, trying to figure out what it meant. At 2 seconds, he lowered the phone. At midnight, the clip ended. He never moved. The video didn't glitch, it just stopped. 2 days later, I started getting calls from unknown numbers. For the first day, 6 the next. No one spoke. Just silence. Once, I heard something in the background, like a diesel engine idling. I changed numbers. A week after that, my DOT profile was flagged for equipment possession discrepancy. Someone claimed I'd taken trailer 41873 and never delivered it. Only I hadn't hooked it. When I tried to dispute it, I was told my vehicle GPS showed I'd spent over an hour on site. I hadn't. Not unless time ran differently in that place. Now every few months, I get a text from a new number. Always just a countdown. No context. No threat. I stopped opening them. But sometimes when I park in an empty lot, I'll catch a glimpse of a white Cascadia behind me, a little too far back to make out the plate. And I never stay long enough to see who's holding the phone.